Okay. Good afternoon. Okay. It is now April 4th. We're in the month leading up. We have about just under 5 weeks leading up to the May SAT. And I got my busyness of the last week kind of out of the way. And so starting this week, I'm going to be streaming every day. So this is a little different from the description. I don't think I updated the description that's in my YouTube video. But I'll be streaming Monday through Friday rather than streaming on Saturdays, just because it's like I need to find some way of staying sane. And I'm finding that trying to work more on the weekends is messing me up because I already have to work on the weekends for other things. So I'll update all this when I can. I'm sort of just like running with it. Today I'm actually like extremely busy, so today's stream's not going to be super long. Just going to get through the writing section of the March test. I want to get through the March test as fast as possible. I'm debating whether or not I should do the math, but I feel like I should because I want to get a 1600 next on May. Which means that I should study a little bit of math along the way. So if you want me to do math content, let me know in the comments below. If you're not sure, then let's just try math tomorrow and see if I'm even good at explaining it. And it might turn out I'm actually just terrible at explaining math. Actually, that makes me nervous because it's been such a long time. I don't even know the vocabulary anymore for math. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I still have to decide about it. I'm not too sure. I kind of don't want to do. Now that I think about it again, I kind of don't want to do the math tomorrow. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I feel like there's gonna be so many math tutors online anyway. You know what I mean? So anyway, let's get started. With that, we're gonna get into the SAT. Let's go. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, there we go. And I'm looking for the writing test. All right. Well, look, it looks like I have to make my what do you call it? My windows like act more normal. So let me just size this properly. I find this bit of OBS to be like hard to use, but if anyone happens to know like a better way of like this sort of awkward manual editing, I just find kind of like awkward to use. So let me know if anyone out there is like an OBS expert, what your tips are. All right, I'm just gonna work with that. Let's go into the questions now. So you're gonna notice I'm actually having to reread this because I don't remember anymore. So let's go. Wow. The first thing is immediately I already know the topic that is on people's minds. Does Saul go straight to the question? And no, I don't. I just read it. And what I do is, without looking at the right side of the screen, I basically just look at this, and when I I just read it as normal. And when I come to the underlined part, I start reading it like an editor, and I think, what is the possible error that's in this sentence? I don't think I've heard this specifically, at least when I was going through Khan Academy, I didn't specifically hear this kind of advice. But the advice I give to my students and the practice that I make my students do is I make them just go through that underlined bit and just edit it. Like, is there an error, right? And if you are editing, before you even look at the answer choices, if your editing itself is bad, then that means that you actually don't know what you're looking for. So we need to work on that first before we get into all that multiple choice stuff, right? So go and edit it, and I'm basically doing that in real time when I'm taking the test. Okay, so I'll try to show it to you the way I actually do it. 1961, they set out to investigate the presence. They believed that the land referred to Canada or the US, but no evidence was there. The absence of evidence can be a major issue for crime investigators. Hey, look at the title here. In Search of Vikings? That's off. But historians, what? It's insane. So the absence of physical evidence maybe leads to, here's me just actually editing. Now, by the way, I don't fully, this kind of thing is hard to predict the right answer to per se, right? Like I'd have to actually keep reading to get a more exact answer, but I'll tell you immediately, crime investigators is off topic. I already know that's wrong. So I'm not looking for crime investigators. I'm looking for something in relationship to the search for Vikings. So I read, the absence of physical evidence can suggest that the Vikings may never have come, so maybe we're looking for definitive evidence that Vikings actually came, something like that. Okay, and let's look if I can make a quick choice. Maybe, but this seems a little specific. Regardless is it kind of dismisses the entire introduction. That's kind of awkward. And this seems right. That changed. Hang on, let me just double check. No evidence had ever been discovered. By the way, it really helps if you understand the usage of the perfect past perfect or the perfect participle here. If we not perfect participle, but like the fact that we're using the perfect aspect here when we're saying had ever been discovered, that does set up anticipation for something else to happen. Okay, so that changed when these archaeologists. So almost certainly D. Okay. In fact, I think on the real test, I would just circle it and move on because I'm like so sure. And then maybe and then maybe just keep it in mind and then come back and fix it if I realize that I'm wrong. But yeah, I wouldn't stress out too much. I would just choose D. And you know what? Yeah, without even reading the next paragraph, I'm just gonna go with D. I'm gonna just say that's my final answer. Yeah. Can you guys tell what the reasoning was? You know, did I explain that sufficiently? Oh, I'm looking at a comment here. Hey Asa, you purchased the full answers for 16. You can't see the questions. So I'm getting this question pretty frequently, so let me just quickly answer this. But probably you're not taking the US exam. If you're not taking the US exam, then when you pay the $16, instead of I think the $18 or I forget if there's like a price difference, you're not paying for the QAS. What you're actually paying for is the SAS, because the US exams gets the QAS in March, May, and I think October, whereas the international exam only gets the QAS in May. So the March international test is not released. You're not able to see the questions, so that's what happens. All right, it seems like that answered your question. So yeah, let's get into question number 2 then. And feel free to keep asking questions whenever. I'll just like check in every once in a while. The team of researchers, which included Anne Stein-Ingstedt, sailed around and looking, has to be looking, and then a local fisherman from the village led them to a nearby site that looked like houses, and the team decided to begin digging. We have 3 and 4. With Ingstedt supervising the dig. Now, do we want to add a sentence here? It's strange. Oh, this is for the sentence ordering, right? No, I'm confused. What's this number for? Like, why does this number look different from this number? Oh, it's because I'm on number 1. Man, this is so hard to navigate then. Then I have to like do this. All right, well, you know what? Then I won't be able to zoom. I'll just keep it out. I'll keep it zoomed out like this, okay? Anyway, it's B. This is B. Moving on. So I'm going to 3. And then over here, I don't see a problem. So we see at this point, the writer is considering adding a new sentence in between. But here's the thing. right? No problem, Asa. Here's the thing. If you look at this, before I even look at this, I'm actually just thinking here, like, we already have the dig right here. We have the dig right here. And then we have the deciding to begin digging over here. So what is the possible, what possibly could be the information that fits inside there? Like, really, right? So when I read this, I don't feel a need for more information whatsoever. In fact, I feel like more information would be a little suspicious. It's a little sus. So I would be biased against this. And now that I actually read it, I'm reading it right now. In a published account of her work with the team, she describes it as a fair land bathed in sunshine. That has nothing to do with the dig. It interrupts the flow. So I would say no. Loosely related, sure, because this is loosely related information about Langs au Meadow. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, it's loosely related information. So it's definitely C. Okay. Over the course of several years, that's the next question. I just saw it. It's a quick, with Inkstead supervising the dig over the course of, and that is C. That's an idiom that you should just know. It's how you use preposition. It's that particular phrase is, that's the way you say it. That's the way you're supposed to use it. So remember, you guys aren't supposed to only be studying vocabulary, okay? When you look at SAT vocabulary books, they sort of increase your fear by showing you all these very difficult words that you've never seen in your life and be like, you are inadequate. Buy this book. Make me rich, right? That's what the SAT books are all about. But the thing is that the SAT isn't just about hard words. It's about words actually as you actually use them. So make sure you pay attention to how words are actually used in phrases. How are they naturally phrased? That's much harder for international students. Much harder. But you can begin by paying more attention to not the definitions of words, but paying more attention to the examples of usage of words, okay? When you go to the dictionary, don't just use Google to look up the definition. Go into the dictionary and see the actual example sentences. That's more important. Okay, moving on. Number 5. Oh no, I didn't even read this part, so let's keep going. While the architectural elements indicated possible occupation, it could have been something else, right? It could have been something else. So they sought proof that they were specifically Norse. They were hunter-gatherers who made advanced tools and structures out of wood and bone, and they used canoes made of bark for many activities, such as canoes. I would just say such as canoes. Okay, let's see what they have. Transition to the concluding sentence. Okay, that's why I couldn't. I couldn't predict it correctly. So I'm just reading this again. I'm trying to make sure I understand the concluding sentence. When Inkstead and her team found 1,000 euro scraps of iron melted. I see. Iron, metal, and stone. Okay, iron, metal, and stone. That is the opposite of bothuk. Okay, because they don't use iron, metal, and stone. So, oh yeah, there we go. Right there. But they did not, yeah, that's B. All right. And again, I'm trying to prove the virtue of reading the freaking passage, guys, instead of the answer choices. If you go straight to the answer choices, what happens is you start like overanalyzing on all the wrong things, okay? Read the actual passage and then fix it yourself before you get into the mess of the answer choices. Now, I'll take a quick break to answer any questions I see on Discord or YouTube. So looking, okay, so 1260. So I do have tips on the reading, but I will not be able to share. I will not use today's stream to talk about it. But you can see old streams if you want to review the March US SAT 2022. I talk about it at length in the previous couple streams in this series. So go ahead and look through those. And by the way, if that's like too hard to kind of read that whole thing, even though you haven't taken the test, it might be good to just actually take the March 2022 QAS US first, and then go through that stream, because that would help you. The thing though is that I don't think the PDF, like no one has made a PDF version of the March 2022 US test. So I don't think you can find the PDF version. So you can only do it by either, like, the really hacky way is you could just watch my stream and then solve it that way, but that would be really uncomfortable. Or find someone who is willing to share their QAS like screenshots with you or something. So I don't know if a lot of people want that, and if a lot of people ask for that. How about this? If 10 people leave comments, if 10 people leave comments, I'll go and freaking like screenshot everything. So 10 people leave comments and I'll do it. But if you don't do, if you can't do that, you can still just watch other streams where I talk about reading. Moving on to writing, I'm looking at 5. I already did 5, sorry. So I'm looking at 6 now. Let's go 6. Not only did Ingsted's excavation establish the presence of Vikings, but it also revealed much about their daily lives. That seems to make potential sense, okay? Because it's talking about the bathhouse and then the spinning wheel and the yarn so that seems about right. Let's look at 6. Okay, let's look at 6. An excellent book about the team's adventures. Hilarious. Okay, no, not that. Established. No, we're not talking about a monument, and no, we're not talking about Ingsted. We're talking about, the bathhouse, the yarn, etc. So that's definitely A. Okay, now moving on to number 7. Ingsted uncovered structures including sheds for protecting boats, as well as so structures such as that's definitely C. Wow, this is a medium? Why is this medium? I have no idea. If you guys got this wrong, because medium means that some of you guys were getting this wrong. Tell me which one you guys chose. Did you choose A or B or D? Because, like, literally, if you just read this by itself, you see the word structures here and these word structures here, you should be able to combine these two using either a relative clause, comma which, or by using a participial phrase, comma including, or by using a similar prepositional phrase like such as, that means the same thing. Such as sheds, right? So you should be able to do that pretty quickly. Just remove these 3 words and replace it with something that you use for exemplification, for examples, okay? So that should be a pretty quick and easy one for you guys. All right, so I'm looking at number 8 now. According to the sagas, spinning yarn was work generally performed by Norse women. This find suggested that women were among the settlers on the site. I guess I could put a semicolon there, or I guess it could be D. I'm seeing D, but for some reason I'm not understanding the logic of this. So let me just reread this, the previous sentence. She also found a small stone spinning wheel. According to the sagas, yarn was performed by women. So that makes sense. Of course, if you find the wheel and then the yarn is done by the woman, then naturally you would use so. It's hilarious that it's actually legit hilarious to me that this is considered hard, because guys, learn your fanboys. Okay, this is not supposed to be hard. Okay, the thus and consequently are adverbs. Okay, and adverbs can be placed anywhere in the sentence. So, for example, I could say, according to the sagas, spinning work was generally performed by Norse women. Period. Consequently, comma, this suggested blah blah blah. Okay, I could do that. But if it's an adverb, the telltale sign of an adverb is that you can move it somewhere else into the sentence, and it would still mean the same thing. For example, according to the sagas, spinning yarn was work generally performed by Norse women. This find, consequently, suggested that women were among the settlers, blah blah blah. Or you can even say, this find suggested, consequently, or you could say, this find suggests that women were among the settlers on the site. Consequently, like you can move the consequently to multiple places, right? If you can, and it still makes sense, then it's an adverb. If it's an adverb, it's not a conjunction. If it's not a conjunction, you cannot connect sentences with it, okay? Learn your fanboys, learn your subordinating conjunctions, which is sometimes called dependent conjunctions. No, subordinating conjunctions, they always call it subordinating conjunctions. So learn your subordinating conjunctions, learn your coordinating conjunctions, and please stop connecting sentences unless it's a conjunction. Okay, moving on. Yeah, and just double checking. International students. Yeah, if you're an international student and you would not get the QAS, yeah, so if you want to review the March US QAS with me, then you'd have to find the March US QAS PDF, or like the questions, you'd have to find them online. Yeah, so it's just the unfortunate reality that you will not be able to review your international QAS because I don't know why the College Board doesn't do this. By the way, I don't want to whine too much about this, but like if you grow up, you know, if you take like the LSAT, for example, as a college student trying to go into law school, the LSAT releases every single test, every single one. So there's no idea that anyone's cheating because every single past test has always been released. Whereas in the SAT world, you know, it's possible for you to cheat if you can somehow steal a copy of like an unreleased test and then just study it, and then maybe it'll come out on the next test. Like I understand it's not easy to make questions. You know, you want to have questions distributed across the world, and I know it's complicated for the SAT, but still, it's not like it's impossible. You know, the LSAC is able to do it. The College Board version, the LSAT version for of College Board, right? They can do it. You know, why can't College Board do it? Like, release every single test. Just release every single test, please, College Board. Then we don't have to worry about all this cheating, and we can just study it. And you're not going to stop people from studying it by not releasing tests, because people want to study. Like, just accept it and release the tests. Like, I feel like if the ACT doesn't already do this, the ACT could position themselves better against the SAT by being like, hey guys, we're going to release all tests. No more of this unreleased test BS. We're just going to release them all. I really wish the SAT or the ACT would just do that, and then we don't have to wring our hands around who's cheating or anything like that. We could just study it, you know, like normal people. So, yeah, anyway, sorry, rant over. But it's just something on my mind. So number 8, yeah, I went over number 8, so fanboys. Oh, I didn't give you the correct. It'd be hilarious if I'm wrong. Anyway, moving on to number 9. So number 9. The artifacts that Inkston found led her to conclude, without a comma, okay, led her to something, right? So that's an essential modifier. Led her to conclude that more than 100 Vikings. Okay, that's pretty easy. All right, so that's B. Okay, and we're moving up. Number 10. What? I think College Board locked me out because they're upset. Wait, hang on. If I sign in right now, then you might see like my email and stuff, which I you know, it's kind of uncomfortable. So let me turn this off for a sec. Give me a sec. College Board. I'm sorry. Please just let me sign in. Hey, engineer that's watching this video, please just let me sign in. I'm sorry. You don't have to release the QAS for every single test. It's okay. I still want to take the test. I'll still give you money. You know? Dude. Anyway, I'm just kidding, but let's give me a second. Let me find the page again. I'm logged in, by the way, so they did not actually hack my account or anything like that. Okay, so I'm where are we? Test questions. Writing. I think I was like at like 8 or something. Wow, sad. Sad. Jesus, that's such a funny sad. No comment. I guess he got what he deserved. So, moving on. Number 9. Let's go. The artifacts that Einstein found let her. Wait, I already did this. So number 10. Where are we? Using it as a base. The site. We're talking about the site. So that's B. Okay. And then 11. The findings definitively rewrote the history of confirming. Rewrote feels slightly awkward to me, but also feels like it could be the right answer. I'm not looking at the answer choices yet. Okay, I'm just looking at this. Rewrote feels slightly awkward just because was there a previously written version? Like the previously written version said, like the sort of default assumption was that the Vikings were in North America. And all they're doing is confirming it. They're not overturning it. So if there is a better, if there could be a better answer choice that says definitively proved that, prove the hypothesis of Viking, or prove the common wisdom of Viking exploration. It's hard to put a phrase in there right now. I'm trying to supply a phrase. It's hard to put one. But something on the side of proving rather than rewriting, I would choose that. I would. But my gut feeling says that they're just kind of being a little sloppy with this, so rewrote the history still makes sense, maybe. So I would say it's like a 80% chance it's the right answer. Let me look at B, C, and D now. Oh yeah, it's definitely A. See, but rewriting the history suggests that they actually overturned the previous understanding, which is, it's not the best phrase to use, honestly. College Board, do better. Anyway, let's go. 12. Dude, guys, by the way, I am a little fuzzy just because I didn't eat lunch and I've been sleeping very little. So if I don't make sense, just leave a comment. I'll re-explain. 12. By the way, on the digital version of the QAS here, it's really hard to see the title because there's no if I change the CSS, I'll be able to squeeze some space in between, some margin in between over here. Right, but they have no margin here, so it makes it really hard to see. But that doesn't mean you are allowed to skip it, okay? I always, whether it's the reading or the writing, I always read that title. Always, the title or the blurb for reading. Why? Because it makes it much easier just to know what I'm reading. Like, I know what the conclusion is before I even read it. So in this case, it says the new fish on the block. Okay, I don't know the conclusion when I just read that. It's just too creative and cute. So I don't really know what exactly it means, but once I read the first paragraph, I probably can get a sense of what it's meaning. So here we go. Species have been shaped by divergent evolution. It's a type of evolution that I've not heard of. I don't know what that is. In a population they become more distinct from the rest of its species. Okay, they diverge from their original mother species as they, hang on, we're talking about a population as it adapts to a habitat, so that's C. We're good. Let's go. C, 13. Biologists have long assumed that most organisms will initially struggle in the beginning. Okay, well, initially and beginning are redundant. So we'll initially struggle to survive. So that's D. Okay. Notice what I'm doing. I'm predicting the correct answer D without even looking at the answer D. You know why? Because that's just what good writing is. Good writing isn't some floofy foo-foo-goofoo that doesn't make any sense. It actually has principles that drive it, and I'm getting a phone call that I'm gonna let them know. But there are actual principles that drive good writing, and you should learn it. The College Board's principles for writing are not bad principles. They're actually good principles for writing. So if you don't know, if you are unable to predict the right answer at least 50% of the times, it means your sense of writing is not that good. You can improve it, and you should. Let me just send a message to explain that I'm a little busy. And I'll be right back. Okay, so I think I made my point. Yes, I didn't look at the answer choices. I just got it. I mean, you can just accuse me of cheating, but no, I really did it. Okay, I really did it. 15. However, a recent study, okay, so when I see however, then it means that maybe they don't initially struggle, but then the word however could be the wrong word, so we'll see. We have to read the rest of the sentence to figure out whether however makes any sense. However, it shows that Newcomers can thrive. So however makes total sense. My choice right now is no change. Let's just double check B, C, and D. Heck yeah, it's definitely no change. A. Okay, thrive. Can thrive when... Oh, no. Comma, allowing. Okay? Can thrive, comma, allowing. Rare traits to persist. And keeping different populations genetically closer together. So let's look at that. Thrive. Allowing and keeping. That's D. I'm not even going to look at A, B, C. I'm not even going to look at it. Seriously, I predicted it word for word. Not even going to look at it. Okay? In fact, now that I think about it, I'm going to keep the question on the 15 on the right side so that you can know for sure that I'm actually just predicting it, right? So here, let's look at 16. The experiment subject was a three-spined stickleback fish. They examined how two ecotypes, or geographic variants, of stickleback, relatively smaller ones from lakes, relatively smaller ones from lakes and larger ones from streams, okay? How two ecotypes, or geographic variants, how two ecotypes of stickleback fared, right? So we have two parentheticals right next to each other, which makes it harder to read, okay? But just skip the parentheticals right now. They examined how two ecotypes of stickleback fared. And then the first parenthetical is double comma, before and after the or, before the or, and then after the geographic variance, which defines what the ecotypes means, and then the two dashes, okay? So skip the parentheticals. So this comma should be gone. It's better to not have that comma, but I don't know if there's like a strong, hard editorial decision where it says that you have to, but I think there should be an answer choice. Right now I'm predicting. I'm kind of annoyed that the SAT is asking this question because it's not that important, in the whole scheme of things. I feel like, this is one of those sort of stickler, just to no pun intended on stickleback fish, but SAT is sort of being a stickler right now with the commas, but technically that comma after the or should be gone, okay? Why are they asking this? I have no idea. Okay, anyway, it's D. So we're good. If you want to know what the grammatical term for this is, let me try to actually find this. It's or geographic variance. This could be considered an appositive, although technically it's not because of the word or. But you could be. If I were a teacher, I would teach this with the other appositives, apposives, appositives, just because it functions in the same way as an appositive, but like comma, also known as comma, right? Comma, or just comma, and then you just have a noun there, right? Those all function in like the same way, but it's technically what it is it's a coordinated phrase in parallel, but I don't know. You don't need to get into that. Don't worry about it. Anyway, just know that when you use comma or and then you try to define the thing that you're saying, just don't have a comma in between. You don't need it. I don't know why the SAT is testing this. It seems a little silly, honestly. There's more important things in grammar. So moving on to 17. They also want to test whether there was an advantage to being the less common ecotype. So they placed sticklebacks into multiple cages. Okay. Yeah. It's just C. Oh, you know why? It has to be C, and it can't be like so. So is actually the wrong prediction because I was actually not really reading properly. They examined this and they also wanted this. So that's two different things, right? So then when you go into what they did, that's actually two different reasons for doing all of this other stuff. But if you connect the second reason to all of this other stuff at the bottom with the word so, then it makes it sound like only the second reason is the one, only the second reason motivated them to do all this stuff at the bottom, at the part that I highlighted, right? And that would be logically inconsistent. For example, if I said something like, Flowers are pretty, period. Flowers smell good, comma, so you should have them. Then that'd be very strange because it makes it sound like I should have them because they smell pretty? Because they smell good, or also because they smell pretty, right? If you combine those, the second and third part into one sentence, then it creates a sort of awkward logical connection between only those two, when you're actually trying to connect the third sentence to both of the first two sentences, right? So it's the same thing that's happening here. That's why you actually should go with no transition word, okay? Even though that might feel awkward for some of you, you should go for no transition word, and then you should just start a new sentence. So that's C. Okay, and then we're looking at 18. Each cage contained 2 fish of one equal-type and one of the other. In half the cages, the lake sticklebacks were in the majority. In the other half, the stream sticklebacks were in the majority. So it's 3 fish per cage. The scientists then measured fish survival rates over 6 weeks. And the semicolon is perfect. So, yeah, so no problem. A. Semicolon works like a period, grammatically speaking, but logically speaking, it works. It's really, really great for when you're sharing 2 halves of something, or when you're kind of showing 2 opposites. It's really, really useful for those. So this is 2 halves. On the one side, it was like this. On the other side, it was like this, and you just put a semicolon in between. It's this perfectly balanced sentence. Beautiful. Perfect. Sometimes the SAT, the College Board, uses the semicolon in a way that I think is stylistically not really, I wouldn't recommend it using it that way, but this one is perfect. It's like exactly the type of situation that you would want to use a semicolon. The results suggested that moving into a new habitat could be beneficial. The survival rate of lake origin sticklebacks in both lake and stream cages. Hang on. You know what's happening? Because I'm explaining so much grammar, I'm actually forgetting what this is about. So let me just make sure I understand. It's about new fish on the block, on how they actually thrive. So right now we have when you are the minority, do you actually fare well? Are you actually surviving and thriving? Okay, so let's double check. So the results suggested that actually moving to a new habitat could be beneficial. For example, the lake sticklebacks in both lake and stream cages was higher than that of in both cages. What? Regardless of whether they were in the... That kind of seems like off topic, but I feel like, you would want to hear something about how the survival rate of lake origin sticklebacks in the stream cages, okay, was higher than that of the stream origin sticklebacks, for example. I think that would be good. But when you do both cages, when you're like on both sides, it makes it like logically like that doesn't seem like it's on point. So that feels a little strange. I assume this is about the chart, so let me just double check. Is this about the chart? Yeah. So let me actually, without looking at the answer choices, let me actually try to tell you what I think it should say. Oh yeah, I remember reading this, 3 weeks ago or whenever, and being like, man, this is such a hard graph to read. But here we go. Survival rates of stream and lake ecotypes of 3-spine sticklebacks. Okay, so we have minority versus majority, when there's 2 fish versus 1 fish in the cage. Okay, and what we're seeing is when they're in the crazy thing is, no matter what the configuration, there's 4 configurations here, okay? But no matter what the configuration, the minority is always higher. The survival rate of the minority is always higher than the survival rate of the non-minority, which is crazy. So that's interesting. So for some reason, I'm reading it a lot better right now than I did when I first read it. When I first read it, I was just confused. And then I'm looking at lake and stream. So lake and stream, okay, are the ones where they're just sort of in their own habitat. So lake is this one. So look at that slope. That slope is not very big, so no big change. And then stream, look at that slope. That slope is weirdly actually pretty steep. So it's kind of unusual there. But then if you look at these two, okay, stream lake and lake stream, you're getting, you're getting decent, what do you call it, slopes, okay? So that's that. Now going back to this. The survival rate of minorities, but we're talking about regardless of whether they were in the majority or minority. What is here, whether... Okay, so now I have to reread this. Now this is going the slow version where I'm avoiding looking at the answer choices. The answer choices could help me right now because I'm actually struggling to find what I'm looking for. This is a hard graph to parse, but I'm gonna force myself to do this. And I recommend this for you guys as well because this forces you to come up close and personal with your actual reading and writing ability, your actual analytical ability, okay? So I would challenge you to do the same thing. Let me see what's going on here. So I'm looking for, okay, these are the two lake ones, okay, bop, bop, okay, and these are two stream ones, okay, when they're both in the stream. These are, this graph is extremely confusing. I feel like they should have used the same line horizontally and then used the same symbol vertically. Like, that's such a crappily made graph. But anyway, never mind. So regardless of whether in the majority or minority, what's like a trend that we can see? The trend that we can see is that the triangle is above the circle. So let's look at that. Okay. So when it's a lake, when they're in their stream, they're doing better. When it's a stream, when they're in the stream, they're doing better. Okay. When it's a stream and when they're in the when it's a stream and when they're in the what do you call it? When it's from the stream and when it's in the lake, that's this one. They actually don't do better when they're the minority. So we actually should be focusing on these guys. The lake fish did way better in the stream. What? That's such a crappy... I remember taking I remember taking more time on this question than I was expecting to, but yeah, that's such a... I feel like it's just a bad graph. Like, why would you ask me a question about that graph? But yeah, let's actually look at the... I mean, it's just like not a good writing... Like the combination of this graph and this thing is just like extremely confusing. But yeah, let's look at the lake. The survival rate of lake origin sticklebacks in stream cages was more than twice that of lake origin in lake cages. That's what I was looking for, and so I did predict the right answer. That took me a lot of time. A lot of time. But that's the answer I was looking for. I'm just going to double check. Okay, lake origin, and then when they're in their new environment of stream, is it more than twice as good? And so I'm looking at that, and it's over here, and it's over here, right? So I'm looking at that. That is a huge difference. Look at that. That's 60 versus less than 30. So that's more than twice. So that's definitely correct. Wow. So, hey guys, that's one of the rare situations in which just reading it on the left side, analyzing it on the left side, and trying to correct it on the left side without looking at the answer choices actually does slow you down significantly. So that is an example of that. It's not a perfect strategy, but I would say if you still stick with defaulting to predicting the right answer before choosing the answer choice, you're going to actually save way more time on not being confused. Okay, so still I stand by my recommendation. Okay, see how it works for you. Look at C. That is correct. Now moving on. So I'm looking at 20. Just double checking any questions. Okay, nope. So 20, and we're looking at this advantage was attributed to the greater amount of nutrients. Independent of a fish origin or destination, though, both ecotypes survived at higher rates when they were in the minority. So this is the thing I was talking about. Minority always wins. And then That was the first thing I noticed when I saw that graph. When streamfish were placed into lake cages, for example, their survival rate as a majority ecotype was about, but when they were, okay, so streamfish. So streamfish is over here, okay, so we're looking at these two. And when they're in the, let me just double check. When streamfish are placed in the lake, so I'm only looking at this one right here. Dotted line and circle. Right. So when they're in the minority, they're at like 95, and when they're not in the minority, they're like when they're in the majority, they're like 65. Okay, 95, 65. So that would be 65 and 95. Okay. So then you would say B, and that's correct. But this is kind of specious argument. You guys know what the word specious is? It's like misleading argument. Guys, this graph doesn't fully prove what they said. What they said should predict that when the stream guy is in, oh my god, what the? College Board. All right, hang on. I want to not show you my, like personal information. So let me. Dude, why do they keep signing me out? What's this stupid code that they're running where they just kick people out of their own login? I don't know why they're doing that. Okay, I'll turn my screen back on. Let me show you. Okay, I think I'm at 20 or so. So let me get to 20. Okay, so I just answered 20, so we should move on to 21. But I was just saying that, yeah, the data doesn't really support the argument here right now. So that's what makes it so confusing. Like, stream in lake doesn't actually do that well. Stream in lake does worse than stream in stream, right? Whatever. I don't know. That's such a strange. It's overly complex. So I don't know. It makes you like it makes all the logic kind of like it's a little bit specious, like to make this argument over here, this sentence. The results suggested that it could be beneficial, and then if you're gonna say this, then you should at least say the opposite. You should at least say, however, the stream fish didn't actually perform that well. It should say that. I don't know. It's kind of weird that kind of you skip that fact. You just sort of gloss over it and you pretend it didn't happen. That's like literally the opposite of what you should be doing in science. Okay, that's one idea. I'm not happy about that passage as a College Board. Especially this graph. You guys, I feel like you're encouraging sort of not the right kind of writing, especially for science. All right, the researchers with the S, regular S, no apostrophe, concluded that because newcomers face less competition, they're concluded is a little strong for that. I would say, postulated maybe, but okay, I guess we're stuck with concluded. So concluded that because, so it's definitely D. And as a result, the pace of divergent evolution, the process by which the pace of that divergent evolution slows, okay, when they're in their new environment. In addition, as genes are passed on, the variation increases, so the variation allows species to express traits that were once rare, but are often advantageous. Since this happens, the species... hang on, I actually lost track of what the original paragraph was about divergent. Yeah, because I keep explaining the grammar, I'm actually losing track of the actual content, but this is the part that you really need. It keeps the different populations closer together, as in it slows down divergent evolution, which actually I noticed over here. It limits divergent evolution. That also that caught my eye when I was scrolling up. But yes, so the point here should be, since variation allows species to express traits that were once rare but are often advantageous, the rate of evolution would slow down. Let's look at 22. B, I guess. Oh man, that's kind of, yeah, it's B. Yeah, but because that's the closest thing to evolution, but it's kind of an awkward way to finish that sentence, but whatever. You know what, guys? I'm not happy with that passage, man. What was that? I feel like that was sloppily edited. So I feel like they could do better. Anyway, I got all those right, but still, like, it's not like exactly the standard of writing I was expecting. Because at least back 5 years ago when I was teaching the older version of the SAT, I didn't expect this number of complaints, is unusual for me. I wouldn't complain this much about a test. I respected the SAT's standards, and I still do, but it was a little sus. Okay, let's hope it gets better. 23. Until Shelley Palmer returned home from a meeting, he found that a family member had cleaned and organized his notoriously messy desk. When, right? Yeah, that's when. That's B. He quickly realized he could not find the materials he needed and that the space was poorly suited. Stringent rules may trigger employee complaints. Similarly, stringent rules may trigger where employees were based on hampering an employee. Okay, that's kind of a long sentence, but sure. Something like similarly. I want to make some sort of logical transition between those two. So yes, exactly. I'm looking for a transition, and such imposition of order, it has the same idea as similarly. So that's what I was looking for. I got it right away. Yeah, so that's definitely C. Yeah. That's a hard question, and that does look kind of like a hard question. When you guys see the stream, if you're watching now or if you watch it later, just leave a comment on what questions, if you chose A, B, or D, and I can explain in the text below, in the comments below. But you should see exactly why I chose C. I chose C right away without a second doubt. So, and I explained my reasoning for it, so you should be able to get that with me. But if you still need explanation for A, B, or D, leave a question below. Now looking at 25, let's keep going. Can be distracting, hampering, and play. As it turns out, the state of an employee's desk can reflect a number of things about a personality. No. What was the title? A space of one's own. And we're trying to talk about, okay? We're not trying to talk about their personality. Okay, we're trying to talk about how, poorly suited to the way he was used to working, for example. That's the theme, like trying to work better. And over here, can be distracting, hampering performance, right? So what's the opposite of that? Actually, it turns out that the state of the desk may not matter for performance. That's what it should be saying. May not matter for performance. And this is almost certainly wrong. That's almost certainly too randomly specific. D seems about right. Increase productivity and satisfaction when they're allowed to just do whatever they want with their desks or office. So that's almost certain. Yeah, that's D. I mean, you can eliminate all the other ones. So D. Let's go. As a study suggests, singular. It's C. Employees may experience increased productivity and satisfaction. That makes sense. I don't know how you would change 27. I feel like 27 is no change. Yeah, it's definitely A. Okay. The psychologists, comma, so there's comma on both sides, so that should be no problem. And the psychologist asked, and you are allowed to just say the psychologist asked because we already mentioned them before. Over here. This study by psychologists at the University of Exeter, blah, 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 blah. The psychologists, and then now we're just telling the name, okay, through in a positive. So, comma. So, no change. No change, no change. A. Ask some participants to do administrative tasks in a clean office that contained only a chair and an empty desk. Other participants were given the same furniture along with pictures and plans and told to decorate the office and desk using any items they liked. They then conducted the same tests as those in the bare office. Who had more freedom to arrange the space, completed tasks more quickly, fewer errors. Yeah. They're all so productive. Okay? And maybe even happy. Yeah. Some employers might argue, okay, here we're on the counter argument, so we're doing a concession or maybe just a rebuttal here. Some employers might argue that a clean desk policy is necessary, or that without a clean desk policy, workers would be free to let their Some might argue that without a clean desk policy, workers would be free to let their desks evolve into outright color. I think that would be a pretty much correct answer. Alternatively, some employers might argue that a clean desk policy is necessary period. Otherwise, workers would be free to let. I guess, I don't know. I prefer my first one. Okay. Yes, B. That's correct. That's exactly my prediction. Moving on. However, a University of Minnesota study led by, it can be an asset, okay. Tidy desk, or I'll just delete this, right? Those place participants either at something or at something else. You should just delete. Yes, D, correct. And then she then instructed them to do this brainstorming, and then the people with the messy ones were the ones who did better. Okay, cool. Requiring workers to maintain sparse desks may have a negative impact on office productivity. May have little choice but to adopt a clean desk policy where maybe necessary, depending on the environment, something like that. Maybe necessary. It's hilarious how spot on I am. It's shocking me, actually. But yes, maybe, you know why? Because this word requires. Just read that sentence and what's like the natural transition to this sentence. Okay, so it's definitely maybe necessary in some work environments. That's D. Okay. Sorry, I won't even look at the previous answer. I'll stay here and let's look at 32. However, in workplaces where people have their own desks, employers would just as well consider. Still also works. Still is fine. However, still, they both work. And so you would use A. And then would just as well is what you would say. Oh, interesting. Right, just as well is actually not idiomatic. The correct answer is actually D. C. Would do well to consider the potential benefits of permitting workers to arrange. This is a particularly idiomatic phrasing that you just have to get used to. But when you say you would do well to X, basically it means it would benefit you if you did X. Or the short version is you should do X. Okay, so that's what do well to means. If you hear and read a lot of idiomatic English, like that's used by natural English, native English speakers, then this should be a fairly common phrase for you. At least you should feel that it's normal when you hear it out loud. Okay, you might not personally use it in your own writing, but that said, if you don't use this in your own writing or in your own speaking, then use it today. Use it right now. Okay, use it right now. Learn to say this phrase to people around you. I know you're deciding whether to stay with Anna as your girlfriend. You would do well to reconsider. I'm your friend, and I feel like you're spending way too much time with Anna and not with me, right? But you can, just use that. Use it in your own sentences, okay? That'll go miles farther for you in terms of remembering these words. Okay, and don't just do it from the SAT passages. Do it from all unusual idiomatic phrases that you hear other people using. When you hear them use it, you just repeat it right away. Use it as soon as possible. The more you use it, the more it stays with you. Is it called? I think there's like a phrase for that. It's like use it or lose it, right? Use it or lose it. Use it or lose it, guys. All right, final passage. Let's go. Oh, I need to take a quick break because I need to coordinate for my next. I have something after this. Okay, so I need to coordinate a little because I think I'm going to fall a little late. But before I take this break, I'm seeing this comment here. I'm seeing this comment in the chat, so I'll just answer. What's my goal score? I'm actually going to study math this time, so my goal score is 1600. I think I'm upset that I didn't get an 800 on the EBRW because normally, like if you logged into my SAT back in 2016, my College Board, you would have just mainly seen 800s because of all the old SATs. When I took it, it would always just be 800s. But then what happened is they got rid of all my old scores, so I have to like request it by email or something separately. But yes, I expect to get 800 on EBRW, and this time I'll actually properly study for the math so that I should know at least what a sine and cosine is and what similarity and congruence are, and I should know these things before I go in. And I guess I should bring a calculator too. So then I should get an 800. I should get an 800 on the math as well. Let me take a quick break to coordinate for my thing after this, okay? And then I'll finish off the final writing passage. One sec. Boop. All right, I am now back. Sorry about that little wait. I had to coordinate for my next appointment. Final passage, question 34. Let's go. And just for some of the people who are just joining in the stream, right now I am demonstrating to you what I actually do, which is I try to avoid looking at the answer choices until the last necessary moment, okay? And I actually do this in the real test because I find that when I look at the answer choices first, it makes me more confused because then I'm like plugging back in and like looking at all the possibilities, but instead of just asking myself a very simple question, which is this sentence right or how can I make it better, right? That's much easier to answer than like, is this comma supposed to be here? And then I was like, oh, what happens if I put this comma over here? Like it makes it way too confusing to like calculate all those variables simultaneously. So much faster to just answer it to the best of my ability on my own and then match it to the answer choice rather than the other way around of like deriving the answer choice through brute force, trial and error. So I'm trying to demonstrate that. Yes, I don't, and this is just because I am good at math, or at least I used to be when I was a kid. I mean, I didn't get a perfect score this time, so I guess I'm not so good at math anymore. But yes, I do all of the calculations in my own head, and I don't know. I just, I think that's a whole separate skill, and I don't know how to teach math skills just because I'm not a math teacher, so I don't have the vocabulary for teaching math skills, but it's something I developed over time as a kid. But if I could give one tip, all right, there's an alarm clock. Okay, there's an alarm clock app that you can download on your Android or iOS phone called Alarmy. Like alarm with a Y at the end. I used to work at this company, by the way, so full disclosure. But I love this app. It basically has this very annoying, obnoxious alarm where if you can set like a very annoying alarm sound, but then on top of that, it doesn't let you turn the alarm off unless you do some sort of pre-selected like mission or task. And one of the tasks that you can choose is doing math, like arithmetic. So every morning I'm solving like 393 times 12 plus 412 or something like that, right? And then I just have to calculate it, and I'm just like sort of I'm like doing this every morning to wake up. So if you want to practice your arithmetic, you can set the difficulty level. You can set the difficulty level according to how much you need, but you can do that with the alarm. You could do a little bit of math every morning with the Alarmy app. Okay, and I think that is beneficial for a lot of high school students. I think it would be helpful for you guys. Also because you guys tend to not sleep very well, so it's good to have an alarm that forces you to wake up by doing math problems. All right, so that's just my random life tip. Let's get into the final passage and wrap this up. All right, as always, start with, this is the infamous Ewing. On Reddit, people flipped out on this passage. This is so fun. All right. I'm laughing just because I just remember all those comments on Reddit. People were flipping out. Let's get into this. Okay. I haven't really reread it in a while. So I'm going to be like remembering as I read it. Okay. So here we go. Doug Chiang had a problem with the spaceship. The U-wing design makes a U-turn, and I do kind of remember what happened. So basically, the design originally doesn't really match its the aesthetic that the movie is trying to go for. So it makes a U-turn, as in it does a 180-degree turn. It goes back the other way, right? It reverts. It changes. Okay, so that's the idea here. It's being cute. The U-wing makes a U-turn, right? So. Anyway, now that we have our expectations ready, let's read. Chiang had a problem. The vehicle that he sketched out. Okay, I immediately saw this parentheses and I looked for a right side parentheses, but instead I saw a dash, so this has to be a dash, so that's B. Okay. Concept artists looked. Okay, so the vehicle sketched out by Chiang and the concept artists, professionals who make filmmakers and video, looked. So the vehicle looked a little too above this planet. Now above this planet is a little too like out of place. Okay, we're looking for out of place or something like that. And out of this world is the correct answer here. I remember some people got okay. So out of this world. Okay, a little too out of this world. A little too futuristic maybe. Okay. Dude, College Board, stop doing this to me. Okay, to hide my email, give me a sec. I have no idea why this didn't happen last time. And okay, thankfully, this will be the last time I'm doing the QAS. Before May, all of the other QAS will be on my iPad using PDF versions of this test. But this is the only time I'm having to like log in to do it. So thankfully, I won't have to suffer this after today. But yeah, what the heck, man? Stop logging me out. Okay, so I'm at writing a language. Here we go. I think I'm at like 33 or something, right? 34? Okay, here we go. 35. Looked a little too out of... Okay, it's 36. Perhaps the futuristic... Okay, right. So a little too futuristic, right? That's basically your prediction here. A little too futuristic. And out of this world sounds like futuristic. But in any other film, the futuristic design would have been good, sufficed. But he wasn't working on just any film. He was working on Star Wars. Whose merch... Why are we talking about merch? Whose history isn't super futuristic. We have to have something that's the opposite of futuristic design, okay? So whatever that may be. So I'm looking for that answer choice. Whose theme? Here we go. Past, not the future. Past, not the future. That's D. Yes. Yes. When preparing just double checking Discord and YouTube for comments and moving on. When preparing to make the original Star Wars film, he turned to these other people that are not Chiang. Just we're talking about different people. By the way, in the real test, I actually circle names so that because I have bad memory, and I suspect I actually have ADHD. It's less severe now than when I was a kid, but I definitely circle names because I forgot names constantly. But by circling, it makes it easier to find them whenever I need to come back. And it only costs me like 0.5 seconds for every circle, right? So 0.5 seconds of an investment for potentially like 20 seconds, 30 seconds of like time saved, like scanning for that name that I can't find is so worth it. So I know some teachers teach an annotation system that's like logical, that like structures the whole passage for you. I don't think that's helpful. I think that makes you overthink way too much about annotation. It makes your annotation take more time than the actual questions. So I would not take a structured approach to annotation. I would take a memory-based approach to annotation. Mark things so that you can forget it, but come back to it if you do forget it, right? That's why you're marking things. So not because you want to have a perfect logically structured framework for understanding the passage. That's not why you're annotating. You're just annotating so you can find things faster when you need it. So yeah, I do the same thing with the circles here. Anyway, he and he are not Chiang. Okay, so he turned to them to create art depicting the creatures, vehicles, and locations that has to have commas. So that's a pretty easy question. So creatures, vehicles, and that's C. And we're moving to the aesthetic that emerged from these two guys was a blend of cinematic and world history. So cinematic history and world history, incorporating a used universe feel, which so far makes sense. Nothing looked shiny and new. It's kind of slightly awkward. I would normally say the word or here, but it's fine. I'm just nitpicking. So a used universe feel, that definitely feels like it makes sense with the whole world history, cinematic, all that stuff, and also the whole contrast against the futuristic here. It makes sense. So I feel like I wouldn't make any changes. Excuse me. That was violent. It came out of nowhere. Anyway, I think I won't make any change. Let's just double check. I'm like, by the way, before I even look at the answer choices, I'm just going to say my prediction is I'm like 85% sure. In fact, I'm like getting 90% sure. I don't think there's going to be a right answer choice because that just makes sense. Use universe is the point. Distinctive color palette seems off topic. Ooh, maybe this. Because this is from the past. Yes. Yes. It has to be C. I see. You know what it is? I forgot to notice that I neglected to focus on the fact that looking shiny and new is not the opposite of cinematic and world history. Okay? So it should say the aesthetic that emerged was inspired by world history, right? So this is the Western, the samurai, the World War II. Yeah, that's world history. That's supporting the previous part of the sentence, right? That's what the question is asking about. By the way, you might be noticing that I'm not properly reading the questions. But in the real test, I do read the questions. It's just that since I've gone through this passage before, I can kind of like semi-remember the questions. But starting tomorrow, I'll actually be streaming myself solving tests in real time under time pressure while explaining it. It's going to be way harder. It's very stressful to do that. But I'm going to be doing that. And you're going to notice that one habit that I always try to keep is focus on the question. Okay? Never miss the question. Always read the question. Okay? So that's super important. Okay, I'm looking at... Oh, yeah, this is the infamous question. Here we go. Chiang's film designs needed to mesh seamlessly with his forebears, the people who made the design before, because the events occur immediately before that film. Okay, the fiction universe is literally the same universe and it's just before, so it should have the same design or very, very similar design. However, the U-Wing, when it was placed next to the original film's X-Wing, the two vehicles looked as different as night and day. And this is what I chose. on the real test, and I got this one wrong. Okay. But let's look at what happened. And this one's infamous. I think a lot of people were freaking out about this a lot of people definitely were freaking out about this on Reddit. Let's look at the answer choice. If I read this right now, I would say that this feels a little overly exaggerated. Okay? It does feel a little too dramatic. See, because we're saying that the U-wing looks too futuristic and the X-wing looks more historically inspired, right? Something like that. But looking as different as night and day, that's like a little extreme, right? But maybe they do look as different as night and day. We don't know. We can't see the thing unless you watch the movies or unless you like saw Chiang's original designs, right? So maybe, right? But it's a little exaggerated sounding. So maybe we can find something like the two vehicles didn't really look congruous. You know, they didn't look like they belong together. Okay, so that would be a little more natural way of saying it, but this one's also doable. We're so different. I would have wanted to shout, okay, suddenly we are bringing the personal back in, which never existed before or after. Off. We're like apples and oranges. Okay, that could make some sense, except for the fact that apples and oranges tends to be talking specifically about when you make a category error. Like, don't compare things from the same category. But in this case, they are from the same category. They're both the same idea. Okay, so it's a little weird. Then look at D. They didn't look like they belonged to the same universe. Perfect. Comma. Aesthetically weird. Why would they say that? Okay. Ethereal Gaze, I see that. They did go, yeah, Reddit did go crazy over 39. And the reason why I didn't choose D, okay, was because aesthetically felt extremely redundant. It felt like the kind of thing that you shouldn't choose because, like, you don't have to say that. The word look, okay, kind of implies the aesthetics. And also, if you look at, okay, the previous context, we just keep talking about the designs, right? So is the word aesthetically really necessary? It feels like a redundancy error. That's why I didn't choose D. And I was really stuck. I was like, A or D or A or D. Well, at least A still makes sense, right? So I chose A. At least A still makes sense. It's a little exaggerated sounding, but at least it still makes sense. Whereas D, it feels like it's actually making a redundancy error. And I really, really would not, personally, I don't think that's a good sentence, D. I don't think it's a good sentence. I think the SAT College Board should I think it should admit they made a mistake. They shouldn't use that word aesthetically there. It's unnecessary. And it makes it feel longer than necessary, that whole sentence. Whereas A, the argument would be, the typical argument would be that, it's not the right tone. But guys, looking as different as night and day, yeah, it's a little exaggerated, but it's not, you know, the language here isn't like super highfalutin analytical, you know? It's just sort of an intelligent person's regular prose. Like, look at this sentence right here. Doug Chiang had a problem with the spaceship. You know, it doesn't say a quandary afflicted Doug Chiang in the process of the conception of his space. It doesn't say that. It just says he had a problem with the spaceship. They looked as different as night and day. It's like the same register. It's not that far. It's, you know, so the only reason why I think A would be wrong is not because of the tone, or more technically speaking, if you're talking to like a linguist, you would call it a register. You don't actually call it tone. But anyway, but people call it tone, so I'm just going to use the word tone. But the tone or register, okay, it's not really the problem. The real problem with A is that it's like kind of exaggerated sounding. But the problem that like, I still think D has a problem. I think that word aesthetically is, sure, it makes sense. You can choose it, and you're not being dumb if you choose it. It makes sense. But it just seems like a redundancy error, and so anyway, so I was stuck between A and D, and this one I was like, I like huffed to myself in the real test. It's like, I'm so annoyed that I have to make a choice here, but then I chose A and I got it wrong, and the correct answer is D. And I think the College Board should honestly retract this question, but it's too late. Good job though to everybody who did get it right. Maybe whatever, man. Take what you get. Take what you can take, right? So hey, more power to you. Going to 40 now, dude. 40. At the time, he was developing a trilogy of three. He was developing a trilogy of prequels. Okay, so that's B. And then, and he encouraged Chiang to. There doesn't seem to be any problem here. I'm encouraging you to explore the gray area between what Star Wars is and what it's not. So yeah, I think A is probably correct. Oh, and he encouraged Lucas going the wrong direction. That'd be crazy. Yeah. Of course, Lucas was the one encouraging Chiang to take the bold risk, because this is why we talk about how Chiang was making those designs. So just pay attention to who the subject of the sentence is, and who the focus of the paragraph is, and you should be fine. So that's A. Moving on, and then over here we're looking at. We have this. I know that this other question 42, people are having trouble. Okay, for Chiang, this artistic risk taking often meant. Okay, so Lucas encouraged Chiang to take bold risks. This risk taking, right? So we have to take bold risks to explore, and then this risk taking directly connects to that part of the sentence. So I feel good about 2 and 3 staying together. We'll go through dozens of iterations before being finally finalized, but the results were usually stunning. For Chiang, this is just the latest. He was used to this kind of thing. And that's why I would have, when I first read this, I wanted to put it right before 4, okay? Or right after sentence 3. I did. But then I stopped myself, okay? This artistic risk-taking often meant that designs would go through dozens of iterations before being finalized, but the results were stunning. And then when we say results, and he was no stranger to such trial and design work, it's like, yeah, this sentence connects with 4, but it really doesn't transition with the results, because this is a strong emphasis at the end of that sentence. So I stopped myself. I was like, hang on, that doesn't work. If you chose D, it's because you're only thinking about what happens after this sentence. You're not looking at what happens before the sentence, and you're not rereading those 3 sentences together from 3 to question sentence to 4. Okay, you should read them all together. Okay, if you do that, you might have second thoughts about D. The correct answer then becomes A. Well, oh wait, before I show you, because who knows, I might still be wrong, right? I might not remember this correctly. Look at this here. However, when his ship was placed alongside, the vehicles looked weird, right? They looked out of place with each other. The team, the people would need to take the U-wing back to the drawing board. People is the subject right now, multiple people, team, and then back to the drawing board, that's the focus. And look here. Trial and error design work connects to back to the drawing board, same focus. But why is Chiang so useful? Why is this word so useful? Can anybody guess? Look at this word he. The Rogue One team would need to take the U-wing back to the drawing board. He. That's not good, right? That pronoun doesn't refer naturally to Chiang. You can kind of mention Chiang here, but this is literally the previous paragraph, and in between Chiang and we have the whole team in between, makes it awkward. You want to have Chiang reintroduced over here so that the word he doesn't point at nothing. You want the word he to point at Chiang. That's why it's A. That one I actually I did like a little hiccup during the real test. So if you got that wrong, at least I was there with you. Okay, I almost got it wrong as well. Now let's look at 43. This is the other Reddit one, the other infamous one on Reddit. So let's go through this. For the next version of the spaceship, Chiang and his team began incorporating elements from real-world vehicles such as the helicopter, okay, the 60s helicopter. They also drew directly on Macquarie and Johnston's visual vocabulary with the apostrophe S at the end of Macquarie and Johnston, because the visual vocabulary is one thing that the two of them together own. Because the two of them together collaborated to make that. It's a rule. I totally had forgotten about this rule because I'm no longer like all that intense about like these weird little copy editing decisions. You know, I no longer read the Chicago Manual of Style for fun. I used to though. I used to be very nerdy about this kind of stuff. But yes, when you have Macquarie and Johnston and they both own the visual vocabulary together, you need to have an apostrophe S at the end. I got this one wrong because I was like, what? I was thinking about it. I was looking at D and I was like, is that would the SAT really test that? You know, that's what I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it during the test. I was like, would the SAT really test that? Or should I go with the safer answer with Macquarie's and Johnston's? And I felt like A was a safer answer to me at the time. But turns out this is just a rule. It is a rule. I don't know why their SAT is being that nitpicky, and D is correct. Okay? So, honestly, I'm not happy that the SAT brought this question in because I don't think it's the kind of grammar that you really should be encouraging kids to focus on. I think it creates a sense of overly obsessing about minor details rather than the grammar that sort of helps logical flow. You know, I think there's a sort of grammar that's about better clarity and persuasiveness rather than grammar about technicalities, right? I think grammar about technicalities, it's kind of like asking an engineering question in the math section. Like, why? You know, you don't need engineering questions in the math section. You just need fundamental logical reasoning abilities in the math section. You don't need engineering specific questions. I don't think you need this specific question in the SAT, but I don't know. They put it in there, and I'm not the College Board, so. 44. It could have appeared in the original film. He finally succeeds. It looks very obvious, but you know what? It was actually, that whole process was actually not very obvious. So that's the prediction. Yeah, and that's D. Okay. All right. So I tried to demonstrate to you guys what it's like to actually take this test, okay, without looking at the answer choices. You know, just to like edit it in real time and then try to come up with the answers and then getting the answers. And this, I'm going to do this in real time streams as well. So you're obviously, when I'm doing a real time stream within 65 minutes and 35 minutes, I won't be able to explain as much, but you will be able to see me do it. I'll literally do it in front of your very eyes, like starting tomorrow. So, okay, so I'll see you guys in the next stream where you can watch me do that. If this kind of thing interests you, right? By the way, guys, I also have a Discord server that I'm sort of slowly building out. So you can ask questions about your SATs, grammar. You can ask math questions, but I can't help you as much as maybe some other people can help you. But if you just come to our Discord server and if you have the mentality of like, I'm going to give as well as take, not just take, you know, as long as you have that mentality, I welcome you and you can kind of feel free to do whatever you want. So that's me. By the way, Ethereal, you saw that 42 was tough. Yeah, is that yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Pronouns though, whenever you have a sentence ordering question, always check pronouns. Never do a sentence ordering question without checking pronouns and determiners, which is like another technical word if you want to Google it. But determiners and pronouns, always. Okay, make sure that all the pronouns flow naturally. Okay, that's super important, and that would have helped you get 24. 24. I'm being dyslexic. That would have helped you get 42. Okay, so that's one last tip. I'll see you guys in the next one. Good luck out there and stay growing. Okay, that's the most important thing. Always stay growing.